Right, good evening, everyone. So today is Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. here in the UK, and we are about to go into our weekly Zoom, hosted by myself, Ritu, and we're just waiting for the screen to get going, and then we can start diving into this very broad and interesting topic. But before I do so, and Nisha, I might get some feedback on you. We are going through a bit of a rebrand, and although I serve men as well as women, I don't know if you've seen much on the socials recently. I keep talking about the girl boss method. So it's mainly, I mean, I want to work mainly with people, be it girls or boys or men and women that, are career driven, career focused. They run a business. And they just want to use fitness to try and propel them in their careers, in their businesses, and in life. So that's what the Girl Boss method is all about. So do you like the new logo? Can you see it there? I don't know if I can actually zoom. Look at that, I'm giving away the goods.
The new logo, the Girl Boss method.
Yeah, can you see it there?
Yeah, I like it actually. It's cute.
Yeah, it is cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I like that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get started. So today's topic, guys, is sleep. And sleep is an interesting one because we don't know enough about sleep, but we all experience sleep. We spend roughly 2/3 or a third of our life sleeping. Probably I think about a third of our life sleeping. So it's a huge part of our life that we don't know what's going on, what's occurring, why we do it, for what reason, what sort of processes are going on whilst we sleep as well. And there are many scientists out there who dedicate their lives diving into this topic and really trying to find out all the different areas of sleep and the different processes of our body, of our human anatomy, etc., that can be affected by this amazing or like very strange and very interesting phenomenon. Okay, so let's move on. So the first few questions when I was sort of looking at this topic were, well, why do we need to sleep? And so when we're thinking about a fitness perspective, the reasons that we would want to sleep, and again, this could be for all the other biological processes that happen within the body. We want to recover. So it's great for recovery. There is a lot of like healing, if you like, that happens within that time. And then when we're thinking directly about the fitness perspective, we are, we're working on repair. We are, why do we need it? We need it for immune function as well. We need it to feel good. So there are quite a few different reasons as to why we need sleep. Okay. And I think we can kind of go on and on and on in terms of how, like, why we need it. But when we think about how much we actually need, this differs throughout life. So you'll find that from infant through childhood, through teenage years, and then through the peak of your, or the bulk of your adulthood. And then also when you become elderly, the amount of sleep that you need differs as you go through the various different stages of life. And we all know, I think most of us know that, children tend to have, we all remember being a child and having very early bedtimes, 7 or 6 or 7 or 8 p.m. And getting up sort of roughly around 6 or 7 a.m., depending on, what your schooling day was like the next day, depending on your travel, etc. And Another interesting thing about that is that when we obviously go into the teenage years, we know that there's a great deal of like growth spurts happening. There's a lot of biological changes occurring between males and females. And we all know that as teenagers, we just absolutely loved to sleep. So obviously the body is going through lots of changes. And again, it requires more sleep. And then we get into the peak, you know, of our lives. We come into adulthood. We have, you know, to start taking care of ourselves, taking care of other people, having to show up in the workplace. You know, perhaps maybe it's a business that you run. And so there's so much going on with your life and in your waking life that although our needs still need to be met, we quite often start compromising on that sleep. And I believe it sort of sits around 7 to 9 hours in terms of how much sleep we truly need as adults. And again, that's going to differ from person to person. We do know that there are various stages of sleep. So for anyone that wears a smartwatch, if you ever go to sleep wearing your smartwatch, you can actually look at the data. And I have an Apple Watch, and within that, I can see when I'm kind of going into what they call the deep sleep. And that generally happens within the sort of first few moments of falling asleep. You actually fall into quite a deep sleep. And moving on from there, you come in and out of various different stages. And again, you've got this sort of REM, the rapid eye movement, and that sort of thing. And lighter sleep, again, as you start to increase that cortisol, if you like, to kind of get you up in the morning and you come out of sleep. But unfortunately for most of us, we don't really let that, you know, the circadian rhythm take over. We end up being woken up by children, by phone calls, by alarm clocks. So we never really get ourselves into a great, good rhythm. And for those of you that do, I mean, like, wow, that's brilliant that you have. But for many of us, it's something that we do struggle with. And again, many people struggle with sleep itself. So I think we've kind of talked about the waking day. Maybe stress can have an effect. The fact that we encounter way more stresses as we get older, and that can have an effect on sleep. It could be the fact that we are all addicted to blue light technology. So all your iPhones and your iPads and your television, all of those things are repressing your sleep hormones. So there's lots of things to kind of consider why it's not really happening for us. So some of the things that we can do. Now, I've not got a great deal of slides here, just because we're going to kind of just talk about these different things. And I guess taking it back, because I have got a few little notes here. We'll go back a slide just before we go. So in terms of struggling with sleep, what we do know, and we know that we really need sleep. And what we know that there are some associations when we don't get sleep. So you're going to have an increased risk for things like diabetes, your obesity, and your cardiovascular disease. And that's also one of the reasons why people that have nailed shift work, like, hats off to you, but shift work ideally is not great, and it's because there's such a disruption in this sleep problem. Okay. And when we are thinking about the circadian rhythm and circadian misalignment, as much as 10 days of misalignment, so that could be eating and sleeping. So that's another trick here, actually, in terms of your food and your nutrition. That's really quite important when it comes to sleep. And we'll dive into that a little bit more in a moment. But eating and sleeping 12 hours out of phase from your habitual times can result in a decrease in something called leptin, which is a hormone that allows you to feel satiated. increased glucose, so that's the glucose sort of running around your bloodstream, and the insulin as well. And there's also an increased arterial pressure. So again, that's, you know, we're thinking about cardiovascular issues and things. And they also found that within this study that I'm kind of quoting some of this information from is there, you know, after you've eaten or consumed a meal, the glucose responses within your bloodstream, and they kind of hit the range typical to like a pre-diabetic state. So that's something that, you know, might sound like a bit much to kind of think of when we're thinking about this topic, but it's something, again, to consider in terms of the way that we do eat, and then also, you know, in terms of how we operate in terms of shifts and not keeping an overall good sleep routine or sleep health, as it were. So I guess some of the things we're going to dive into now. So first thing we can do is create something called a sleep environment. So this wonderful picture that we have just here on the right, you've got your bed, you've got your phone, and you've got your clock. Okay, so you need to kind of think about spending at least 1 hour before you truly go to bed, kind of winding down. We touched on this a little bit last week when we were talking about stress management. So for those of you that didn't watch that one, definitely go back and watch that. The environment, again, creating that environment, we're thinking about, again, routine, winding down from the day. So this is where turning off TVs, putting phones in the other room, getting rid of iPads, slowly starting to thinking about routine, doing things like turning off lights, pulling down blinds. You know, we're in the summer now, pulling down blinds a little bit earlier, closing the curtains, going in and into your living room and having a quick tidy up, perhaps maybe just making sure that you've washed your dishes and they're away, and perhaps, you know, having one last wipe of the kitchen countertop. So small little steps, although they seem really small and minute, they're actually really, those things do help create habits, which again are going to help create the environment. Ensuring that perhaps maybe the room temperature, especially now that it's warmer, the room temperature, you do want it those few degrees cooler. You want to, even if you're watching this in the winter, you want to make sure that you've got a cool room, not like freezing cold, but you want it cool. You want to be able to feel some air, and you want your body temperature to kind of come down so that you're not feeling all hot and uptight and uncomfortable. But again, saying that some of the things that we can do to create a nice environment are having a warm shower or a bath to help you relax and really bring down that adrenaline. You know, doing your dental hygiene at the end of the day is always a great one. Taking a little bit more time to brush your teeth and to actually floss. Flossing is something that we all need to do. And I know that speaking to my dentist, I was not the best at it before, but it's definitely something that I'm really trying to stay on top of. And it's amazing how those small little things, again, they actually start feeding into other good habits, especially when it comes to self-care as well. For us ladies, perhaps maybe it's, or even men as well, if you do work in environments that can be quite dirty and dusty. So yes, you've gone in, you've had your shower before you go to bed, but you've had a really good cleanse of your skin. Perhaps you've got a nice nighttime routine that you do for your skin prep as well. One of the things that I really liked, and I did say it last week, I love the smell of lavender. So I use one of these like sleep sprays. And again, whether that's a psychological thing or it's backed by some sort of science, but just spraying a few of those sleep drops on my pillow or into my bed just really helped calm me down. And actually, when I get out the shower at night, I put a lavender body cream on. So, and that just really helps me feel like I'm in the mood for creating that environment of sleep. So, wow, that's definitely quite a mouthful there. Nishat, you are listening live today. If you want to jump in at any point, please add your bits to it and any questions that you've got as we go along. When we're talking about opportunity, this is something that I learned from, I can't think what book it was that I read, but it was talking about sleep opportunity. So if we're thinking about us, in the prime, 7 to 9 hours of sleep for most adults. Now, your opportunity is not, you don't kind of get up from the sofa at 10 o'clock and go, right, it's time for bed, because that doesn't count to how many hours of sleep you've got. And so what I mean by that, let's say that you are shooting for 9 hours of sleep and you get up at 7 a.m. in the morning and you go, do you know what? I want to get 9 hours of sleep. Okay, 10 o'clock, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and go to bed. Well, actually, you haven't given yourself 9 hours of sleep. You've given yourself 9 hours of opportunity. And I used to make this mistake because I've done quite a bit of not hardcore shift work, but I've worked very different odd hours throughout my career and my life. So I've, quite often I've had early shifts when I've worked in gyms, or late when I've worked at gyms or clinics and studios and things. So everyone loves it. When you come home, you need to have your dinner and you need to have a wind down and stuff. And you start creating, like a nice bedtime routine. But when we're thinking about that opportunity, let's say, for example, the next day you've got to be up really early and you've just finished late and you go, well, I finished work at this time and I know that I'll quickly eat and I'll get into bed and it'll be about 11, and then yes, I can get up at 6 and I've had 7 hours. Or perhaps it's something that you've done after a night out, like at the weekend, for example. Well, actually, you're not giving yourself 7 hours. You're giving yourself 7 hours of opportunity. So what I really mean to say here, guys, is really take that into consideration when it comes to thinking about the overall picture of sleep itself. Yeah. Moving on, we're going to talk about nutrition. Okay. Caffeine is kind of, I guess you could say, the obvious one. Nutrition is definitely pointing in the direction for what about 3 people asked in the group. So one of the things that we'll talk about with nutrition is some of the ways that we can aid sleep with food, and some of the ways that, well, actually, do you know what? You need to avoid this for food. So some of the things that people may say that has helped are things like magnesium supplement. You may have heard that can help. I looked at a study earlier and it was having a look at the rate of insomnia present in the elderly, for example. And having a look at this one, they use the supplementation of magnesium to help improve these subjective measures of insomnia. So they were looking at various different measurements to look at how insomnia can be measured. But what they found was that the supplementation actually improved things like the efficiency of sleep, the amount of time that they had, the onset, and also how they felt in the early morning and awakening and that sort of thing. So that was quite good. And in this, they measured things like the melatonin. So we haven't actually talked about melatonin, but I'm going to move on to that in a moment. But that's one of those, the hormones that's going to help aid, that we are going to release when we are sleeping. Okay, it was going to help aid our sleep. So this is another one. Cherry juice, or a tart cherry concentrate. So cherries, there's been quite a few different studies done on the cherries, on the effects of things like muscle soreness. I did my dissertation on that, on recovery, but also was having a look. But cherry juice may actually have a sleep aid effect because of its natural melatonin content. So yeah, that's going to help improve your ability to get some sleep there. Another thing that we didn't talk about when it came to environment actually was the sleep, you know, the dark rooms, and also again, just making sure that you haven't got all those creaks of light and things, because especially with us now on daylight, you know, larger daylight hours, we are going to have light seeping in at like 4:30 in the morning soon. So that's not great for anyone. Just having a quick look at time again, we are okay for time. So some of the other things so one of the guys mentioned turkey in terms of helping to aid sleep. And the reason, I don't know if you've heard of that as well, Nishat, but turkey has got an amino acid called tryptophan. I'm not great at pronouncing these words, but tryptophan, that's how we say it.
I actually thought he was joking because last week's call he was talking about turkey. I thought he was joking.
Oh, yeah. It's again, I think it's probably something he's picked up from Men's Health magazine, but it does have a decent amount. But there are other foods that do have so tryptophan, it's an amino acid, and it actually helps affect your serotonin. So it's going to help affect and aid your sleep. So interesting one, this. Just having a look at, I stumbled across this earlier as well, but carbs. So perhaps maybe, sounds like a weird concoction here, but having something like warm oats or something like that. You could have oats with turkey breast, I don't know. But apparently the carbohydrates, they help increase the concentration of the tryptophan, you know, in terms of the rest of the amino acids. The amino acids are what make up protein, basically. And we have like non-essential and essential. So there are some that, you know, our body can produce, and there are others that, you know, we need to get from food. So that I thought was quite interesting, that carbs, we love carbs, they taste great, they make us feel happy, but they also help aid some sleep in some way. So some of the other things that I stumbled across earlier were tryptophan. For the tryptophan, if you're not a fan of turkey, I found out that you could get that in soybean. I don't know why it's hanging off the end of my tongue. So that was quite good. So for those people that are like vegan and stuff. So again, it may be that some of these things you might look at having in the evening. But again, how big is that effect on the bigger picture? So we can try these small things, but how big is the effect of that on what we're doing? And then I was sort of having a look at other things. So, you know, things like teas. So chamomile tea has been sort of always, I guess you could say it's like an old wives' tale, but having a drink of chamomile tea before you go to sleep, it's going to have an effect on the environment that we create for ourselves. So again, reducing our anxiety, and again, that's going to help your mind stop running away with everything that you're doing. But it also contains an antioxidant that I've never heard of in my life, called apigenin. This binds to receptors in your brain that help promote sleepiness and reduce insomnia. So that's quite cool. So chamomile tea is a great one. Another one was kiwis. Again, not enough strong scientific evidence, but again, it could be that the kiwis are rich in serotonin, and they've got some antioxidants again, which again can help improve that sleep quality. We talked about the cherry juice. Again, with this one, there is some promising research, although more extensive research needs to be done, because it needs to confirm whether or not it helps improve sleep and insomnia. But it does have the high amounts of melatonin again, another one that we are looking at for sleep. And walnuts as well, because of the magnesium. So again, there's kind of a sort of running theme here with some of the foods. And if you guys find it helpful, I can put a list together of them, because I think it kind of does go on and on. I did do a quick Google search, and there was quite a few that propped up there. And I found just from memory that when I looked earlier, that looking at the soya bean one was an interesting one. And I think they compared in this infographic turkey to soya bean. And it was like, although you think turkey's got loads in, well, soya bean's got way more. So again, you know, take these things with a pinch of salt. Now, when we are thinking about avoiding things for before bed, the obvious thing is your caffeine. And it's also thinking about caffeinated drinks as well. If you have a problem with caffeine, you might want to stop taking caffeinated drinks, be it your Coca-Colas or your Diet Cokes or your Monster Energy drinks or your Red Bulls or what have you. Stop taking them right before bed. And I think everyone's heard of this one, but chocolate as well. Chocolate has, especially dark chocolate's got some caffeine in there as well. Again, not too sure on the effect of that, like how strong it is to stop you from falling asleep, but apparently that's one there as well. Water. That sounds crazy that I'm saying this, but water. And the reason being is water, if you've got a really heavily full bladder and you've been drinking most of your water at the end of the day, well, guess what? You're going to keep waking up to have a pee. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. So for those of you that struggle with getting your water in, please reach out to me. Let's add in some water reminders earlier in the day. You know, 2 big glasses on rising and when you wake up. And, you know, another reminder to have it sort of, you know, mid-morning a couple of times there with your lunch in the afternoon. And then generally stop having so much water around 8 o'clock. I think that's a good time to kind of shut it off. But again, you've got to work for your lifestyle and your schedule as well when it comes to, you know, when is a good enough time for you to kind of turn the tap off, as it were. Alcohol is another one, because again, this one is coming from, you could say, memory here, but alcohol, when you drink and consume alcohol and you become intoxicated, when you go to sleep, I think, again, this not backed by anything, I probably should have researched this one before I say it, but I'll say it anyway. Alcohol, you are kind of falling into unconsciousness, if you like. You're not really falling into a deep sleep. You're kind of falling into quite a light sleep. And therefore, are you truly getting proper sleep? And again, that's coming down to sleep quality. But yeah, so when we kind of just sum up everything to do with sleep itself, and all the things that we could kind of do, we've gone back a step. Just to kind of wrap things up, we want to stick to a sleep schedule. So you want to kind of look at overall across the 7 days, you know, you're not waking up at 11 a.m. at the weekend because you went to bed at 5 a.m. It's great in your younger years, but actually when you really start to think about the impact of sleep and why we really need it, another thing that I didn't touch on today, but I'm pretty sure that there is an association with poor sleep or lack of sleep with things like dementia and Alzheimer's as well. So it's just also thinking about the future health, not just the health that we're thinking about right now, and why we need to sleep. So you have a sleep schedule, think about what you're eating. You don't want to go to bed too hungry, and you also equally don't want to be absolutely stuffed. So think about your meal timing. Again, if you are going to bed around 11 o'clock or 10:30 or 10, try and, you know, stop eating around 8. That could be helpful. You know, all this sort of snacking at nighttime is not going to do great for your nutrition, your overall fitness goals. Be it you are looking to, you know, for example, if you are looking for a fat loss, weight loss goal, naps, touching on naps here, it's going to work for the shift worker, but for most of us, it can affect how you sleep later on in the day. Physical activity. I cannot believe we did not touch on this earlier, but this is why sleep is so broad. Physical activity is going to have a huge effect on your sleep, because the more that you can kind of get your energy output up and really kind of get yourself worked up and get into a good exercise routine, is going to help you fall asleep, because you are making yourself truly tired. So I think that has an effect as well. And then again, thinking about creating that lovely environment, de-stressing, doing those bits and pieces to kind of help create the best opportunity for sleep as we can. We are running out of time, guys. Just a reminder, as always, check-ins from Thursday AM till Friday midday. You do know I have some flexibility if there are problems, but again, it's just to make sure that as soon as I can get the work done, the better that you know as well what is ahead for you or what you need to work on moving forward. It just allows me that time to really reply to you, action any changes, so that we can hit the next week from Monday with a bang. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share here, and we are going to stop